Good afternoon, my name's Alan Gamble. I'm here to take a look at the weekly box office charts for Australia. So let's get into the weekend top 10. At number 1 we have Sonic the Hedgehog 3 holding strong with $2.9 million, dropping 28% for a total of $21.2 million. At number 2, Mufasa following closely behind with $2.4 million for a total of $19.9 million, dropping only 19% in week 4. Paddington in Peru at $2.2 million, dropping 24% for a $9 million total. Moana 2 hanging around for a 7th week in number 4 with $1.6 million for a current total of $46.4 million. And entering the charts at number 5, we have Conclave with $1.5 million for a current total of just over $2 million with early weekly previews. So, digging into the top 5, we still have Sonic 3 and Mufasa battling head-to-head, being separated by less than $300,000 or thereabouts, maybe $400,000 after 3 and 4 weeks respectively. So those two are still battling head-to-head. And probably courtesy due to the school holidays, positions 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all fully or semi-animated movies that are absolutely carrying the box office these last few weeks, as there hasn't really been, outside of Nosferatu and now Conclave, many releases for the older audiences. So a lot of families out for the holidays, taking into account and taking their kids to 1, 2, 3, or 4 of these movies. Continuing on through 6 through 10, we have Wicked floating around at number 6 with another $1.3 million, dropping 34% after week 8 for a current total of $44.4 million. In number 7, we have Nosferatu, dropping around 44% for another $1.3 million, for a current total of $5.4 million. At number 8, we have Den of Thieves 2 Pantera at just over $1 million. Number 9, Better Man drops another 33% for a current total of $4 million, taking in another $694,000 this weekend. And at number 10, we have a Game Changer, an Indian Telugu language political action movie, opening with $312,000. Taking a deeper dive at 6 through 10, the one real point of note is Den of Thieves 2 Pantera, opening at just over $1 million. Now, I've gone back and looked up how the original Den of Thieves opened, and it opened at about $1.7 million. So a little bit less than the original entry. How that will leg out, we'll have to wait and see, because we don't have a lot of upcoming movies that might nab that same audience. Better Man continues to drop heavily. However, it should be noted that as poorly as it's been doing in Australia, it's still been doing better than the US market. I think that has a lot to do with the fact that the UK, Robbie Williams is very well known. In Australia, he's reasonably well known. So there's just the confusion of why is he a monkey? But outside of that, at least people know who Robbie Williams is, where outside of England and Australia, he's not a massive artist. One interesting sidebar I'd like to make note of that I can't make note of during the top 10 because it didn't break the top 10 is the movie I flagged releasing wide last week, Monster Summer, the new Mel Gibson movie that opened in 115 screens, opened to a domestic gross of $58,000, just over. That is not very good. And for context, opening to $58,000 of 115 screens, Rifle Club, which opened, I think, last week, opened to $52,000 off 21 screens. Something that opened to a similar amount of screens, Game Changer, just this week, opened at 97 screens for a total of $312,000. It's not super great. And I believe if you look at the weekly charts, Monster Summer actually opened in 17th position. That is real bad. That is below week 8 of Gladiator in 138 screens that still made $282,000. That is less. That is 4 times less than Anora made off 86 screens, and A Real Pain made off 88 with $196,000 and $168,000 respectively. Unfortunately, I don't think there's any way to categorize this Monster Summer other than a complete unmitigated disaster. Now, I did some digging, and apparently they didn't even report international numbers when it released late last year in the US markets and other such things. You can't find reporting numbers on it. So they're obviously, it's not good and an unmitigated disaster. An unmitigated disaster for Mel Gibson, which is probably warranted. Jumping across to the 2025 top 10 for the Australian box office. First of all, we actually have a top 10 now. We've had more than 10 2025 releases come out during the year. So this chart is charting anything that's released this year with their totals. So Paddington in Peru and Nosferatu still hold number 1 and 2 at $9 million and $5.4 million respectively. Conclave enters number 3 at just over $2 million. Den of Thieves 2 Pantera enters the chart at number 4 at just over $1 million. And the aforementioned Game Changer enters the chart at number 5 with $312,000. At number 6 we have The Seed of the Sacred Fig, which is officially released here. It's having some limited screenings. It jumped immediately to 156 after pulling in, I think, around $40,000 this weekend off one screen. It pulled off that because of all the festival circuit and other shows that it's been going at for the years, but it's officially released now, so all of those go towards the now total. At number 7 we have Daku Mararaj with just over $100,000. At number 8 we have Octopus with Broken Arms entering the charts at $86,000. At number 9, Honey Money Funny at $75,800. And at number 10, sneaking in at $75,000 is Rifle Club. And on to what's coming out, new releases this week. The week of January 16th, we have 4 wide releases this week. That is We Live in Time, which is a romantic drama akin to something like Marriage Story, that if that's your jam, you should have a good time. It's with Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh. Then we have Wolfman from Lee Wynell, who gave us The Invisible Man and one of my favourite movies of recent history, Upgrade. So we'll see how that one goes. Then we have Emilia Perez, obviously a big Oscar buzz that we're finally getting a theatrical release for. So that should be exciting. I might actually go and see that because it is starting to pick up a lot more awards buzz. So I like to catch those on the big screen if I can. And then lastly, the last wide release we have is Magic Beach, Australian live action / animated adventure movie based on the book by Alison Lester. So that one might be a good one for the family if none of those others really float your boat. The rest of them are not entirely suitable for families anyway. But Magic Beach, if you've got the kids, that one will be the movie for you. And in limited release for January 16th, so you may or may not be able to find these in your local market. If not, try some smaller cinemas that they might have some of these titles when the big chains don't. But first up is Tomorrow X Together, Hyperfocus in Cinema, which I believe is a K-pop boy band theatrical event of one of their big concerts. We have Dragon Keeper, which is a 2024 Spanish-Chinese animated fantasy adventure film that's finally getting a release in Australia. I believe it's an older release from maybe last year, but we're finally getting it with Bill Nye and Bill Bailey on the English voice cast. We have Firefighters, a Korean action movie about a fire station in Seoul where a rookie joins the new unit, and I'm sure that will lead to some adventures. And then Karika Neramili, I may have butchered that, and I apologize if I do, otherwise known as No Time for Love, is an Indian Tamil language romantic comedy that is releasing on January 16th as well. And now taking a quick look at what's upcoming on TV/streaming. January 16th, we have Season 5 of Harley Quinn, animated show from HBO Max. If that's something that floats your boat. I like the first season. I do need to catch up on it. On January 17th, we have Severance Season 2 dropping on Apple TV, or starting on Apple TV Plus. That's a very, very anticipated one. I do have the Blu-ray of Season 1, but very anticipated by a lot of people. Can they stick the landing that was Season 1? We will find out. And then finally, also on 17th of January for Apple TV Plus, the Silo Season 2 finale is January 17th. So if you were waiting for that one to be all out, it is now all finished, so you can catch up on that and binge that as you desire. For the Cinechums challenge last week, I ended up with two movies, which were What Happened to Monday, Netflix, what I thought was going to be a Netflix YA slop that was just going to be brains off. Turns out it was a little bit darker and more complex than I predicted. It had a little bit of depth. It was a lot better than I expected, so there is that one there. The other movie that I watched for the Future Theme Challenge was 1981's Outland, with Sean Connery in a 1981 sci-fi adventure set on the moons of Jupiter, where he's a good marshal/authority figure on a new, corrupt, drug-ridden space base. So it's generally considered a classic sci-fi underrated gem, and it was good. I love the props and I love the sets, but it was very 80s, and it doesn't hold up as well as other 80s classics for like The Thing and things like that. So this week's challenge is 5, because the people that host the challenge and run the challenge have been doing it for 5 years, so the theme is 5. And it's a fairly open one that gets you to experiment and come up with ideas on your own. So you can have 5 in the title, like the number 5 or the word 5, 5 characters on the poster, 5 characters in the title, like a 5-letter word. It can be about the number 5. It can have themes about 5. So anything set in the Pentagon was an example. Is valid because the Pentagon is a 5-sided shape. It could be about remakes or franchises that have been, the 5th one in the series. So it's an interesting one. And I've got a few ideas on my weekly challenge shortlist. Things like The Running Man, where he fights 5 bosses. Cleo from 5 to 7. Obviously 5 is in the title, along with the 5 Bloods, Fast 5, 5-year engagement. Speed, where the bus travels at 50 miles per hour as a big core thing. We've got Inside Out or Reservoir Dogs, where there's 5 characters on the poster. Same with Batman and Robin. Ooh, that's in case I want a bad movie. So there's a lot of options out there, but it does require you to get creative. So link is in the description if you do want to join up and start checking off those challenges. A lot of fun. I can't wait. But that is it for me this week. Tune in next week and we will catch up and see how the likes of Better Man and Conclave and maybe Monster Summer are going. as well as the new releases like We Live in Time and Wolfman. Wolfman, I'm interested to see how it does, especially compared to the more recent Nosferatu. Very similar vibes. Werewolves versus vampires, a tale as old as time. But apart from that, as well as I might look at putting together my top 12 of 2024 into a video format, because that might be a fun little project to work with a lot of little video edits and stuff like that. So we'll see how we go. Apart from then, we'll see you next week.